Citizenship by descent is often the most affordable way to get one of the most high-quality passports, but it may take longer than other ways to get citizenship, and today I'm going to walk you through how long it takes and what considerations you should be thinking about. So we've talked about citizenship by descent for years. We've helped people get citizenship by descent in dozens of countries around the world, primarily Europe, but also in the Caribbean, Latin America, and even the occasional case in Africa, and of course, Australia and New Zealand. Citizenship by descent basically is you have a parent, a grandparent, sometimes a great-grandparent, and occasionally in a couple different European countries, you can go back even further. And if you can prove that connection, occasionally you may have to learn the language or pass a test or fulfill some other criteria, but if you can show that family connection and you can document that to the country's satisfaction, most countries will give you citizenship. It's easiest through your parents, and most countries will do that through your parents, and then a dwindling number as you go back each generation. But the issue is merely proving that you have that connection rather than making a donation or buying real estate or doing any of the other things that you need to do to get citizenship, and you don't even have to move. Now, if it's your first time here, my name is Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist. We're a boutique consultancy that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally reduce their taxes, diversify and protect their assets, get second citizenship, and improve their freedom. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com, and we also host the biggest and best offshore conference called Nomad Capitalist Live, open to absolutely everybody. We have helped a lot of folks get citizenship by descent. There are a number of cases that are still in process, and that's what I want to talk about today, is what you have to understand with citizenship by descent is there's not necessarily the same impetus. As much as the countries that do this like to say, come on back home, there's not really an impetus when it comes to the execution side of let's get this done quickly. So you saw some countries during the pandemic just say, we're closed for business, come back later. Some of the countries that were relatively quick before the pandemic were just off the table. You're now waiting for them to decide to reopen it, so that's not particularly helpful, right? Or you'll see countries like Italy is one of the most notorious ones, Poland and Hungary sometimes. But Italy, like you'll wait 3, 4, 5 years. You can speed that up if you're willing to go there, but if you're just doing it with the embassy, I've had numerous friends we've helped do this for in the U.S., and I mean, just it is inefficient, and you need to know what you're doing, and you need to know what you're preparing for, and what documents you're going to have, okay? And so before you can even do all that, you've got to have the paperwork to present. People have said, why do I pay someone for citizenship by descent services before I know if I qualify? Don't you want to tell me if I qualify first? Well, just had dinner with someone a couple of weeks ago who is trying to get their citizenship from Romania. And they have spent years, they have hired numerous different people to go to courthouses and to go to city halls and to go to archives, and they have been looking. I've had the same situation in one case of my own. I think I finally reached a dead end until they potentially changed the law. But I had to look for one particular document. I was turning over stones all around the world. It took me years to get that document, right? And so no one's going to do that part for free. So it may take you, depending on how far back the ancestry is. I've heard from numerous people like, I don't really talk to that side of the family that much, so that that could complicate things, right? So that part of even making sure that you meet the criteria. Sometimes the countries, i.e., Hungary or Poland, have been known to be like kind of shift on you a little bit as you go. But to meet the stated criteria, hey, some people can do it in a month, right? It's just, hey, I know where to get everything, boom, boom, boom. Other people, it might take you years to get it, and obviously no one's going to be looking under rocks in courthouses in Romania for free for years, let alone not years. So that's the process. And so you've got to consider when you're looking at citizenship by descent, I would generally always claim these, right? But I've had cases where someone's like, hey, for financial reasons, for personal freedom reasons, for whatever, I don't want to be a citizen of my country anymore. And I know I can qualify for, let's just call it this Italian citizenship, but that's going to take years. And so in that case, we'll generally say if the economics support it, let's go to the Caribbean, for example, get a Caribbean citizenship. Maybe we're not going to get the fanciest one. We're going to get the cheapest one because we know at some point this other one's going to come around and that's going to solve. And if you're a citizen of a European Union country, potentially there's some risks with that. But generally speaking, right, at least today, it's one of the best travel documents you can have. And so you get the one that makes sense now, you get the citizenship by investment, and then you know that later the European one will come in. So we've had that happen before. These are the kinds of considerations that you want to figure out is, just because you're going to get a citizenship in 4 years doesn't mean you may not want a citizenship in 6 months from Dominica or St. Lucia or what have you. That helps you solve your immediate goals, especially if you know you can have, you can build on that. Let's say you're renouncing your U.S. citizenship and you want to do that in the near future. You don't necessarily have to wait for Italy or Ireland or Portugal or whatever the case may be for your descent case. You can get the one now, and then again later it'll come in, and maybe you just don't go to the U.S. for the next couple of years because you don't want to take the risk of applying for a visa. Maybe you wait until you're Italian, and then assuming you meet all the other criteria that an Italian needs to meet to go to the U.S., then you just go then. So our own Jovana Vojinovic handles some of the logistics. She spent actually a couple of years putting together the numbers for how long it takes to get various citizenships by descent. Some don't take that long, some take a long time. Here she is to explain the timeline so that you know what you're getting into.
Hi, I'm Jovana Vojinovic, Director of Operations here at Nomad Capitalist, and today I will be speaking with you about the timeline on how much time does it actually takes for you to claim your citizenship by descent. When speaking about the timeline for citizenship by descent, there are multiple factors to take into consideration. So the first factor is how much time it takes you to collect the documents. Obviously, this really depends on what you already have and what is something that you're missing, but this is the most important phase of the whole process of claiming your citizenship by descent. And why is that? Because sometimes, and we see a lot of cases like that, people might be eligible on the paper, but when it comes really to collecting the documents and demonstrating the eligibility, which is what counts at the end, they might not necessarily have all the documents, or in some cases it's very hard or impossible to find the documents. That might be the very frequent case in Europe, especially if your ancestor fled a country in hurry due to war, First World War or Second World War, or they fled due to political regime. They probably haven't thought about bringing all the documents with them. And to make things worse, most churches or archives that were having baptism certificates, that were having birth certificates, were usually destroyed in war period. So this is kind of what additionally complicates the situation. As I said, we have seen many cases like that. Sometimes you also need to be looking into immigration records of your domestic countries. As I said, if they fled to the US, if they fled to Canada, when they came in, when they got, for example, US or Canadian citizenship, because that's also what counts. An important clause that pretty much exists in every single article regarding citizenship by descent is that your ancestor could not voluntarily renounce their citizenship. So this is something again that needs to be taken into consideration. For example, if there is a case where your ancestor, let's say, obtained the U.S. citizenship at the time where in their home country was not allowed to have dual, this means that he voluntarily renounced his original passport, and it most likely means that you are not eligible. However, it is always worth looking at this and doing deeper research and digging deeper, because it might turn out to be very beneficial for you in some cases, or you might be able to find documents proving your citizenship. And in most cases, I mean, we're looking at a lot of clients who go into that road where we're helping them collect those documents, and with every single document they are finding out basically a story about their ancestor and a lot about their origin and their history and so on. So it's also one kind of emotional process in the way where you're really learning about your history. This can take really anywhere from a couple of days if you already have a lot of documents, or if your ancestors might be alive, they can navigate you through where to look into. Or in some other cases, it really can take a couple of years where you're doing back and forth with bureaucracy by trying to claim those documents. The second factor is how much it will take you to get the appointment in the embassy or consulate or immigration office. And in most of the cases, none of the embassy or immigration office won't give you an appointment without having every single document from the list. So some countries might really process that faster, some might process it longer. For example, an Italian consulate in the US, in New York specifically, it takes them a year for you to give you an appointment. So generally, this is also something that you have to take into consideration when thinking about the timeline. And the third factor is, once you submit all the documents, how long it will take them to process it and to issue you a certificate of citizenship. And this is usually the only thing that embassy or consulate will tell you, like, it will take us 1 year, it will take us 2 years, but they are not factoring in the previous efforts. So if you're just looking online on some websites, it will usually say it takes 2 years to process citizenship by descent, but of course without a factoring moment of collecting the documents and actually getting the appointment. This time also can vary. Some countries are way more efficient. We're looking into UK that, comparing to others, do this fairly faster. Ireland was extremely efficient on this field. However, with Brexit and with obviously COVID backlog, they now slowed it down. Some embassies, for example, Italy, they will literally tell you that you should not call them in the next 2 years because they won't have any news for you. Ex-Yugoslavian countries, it takes a year. Ex-Soviet countries, year and a half usually, just to process your documents and give you the decision. Besides this, there are also kind of two factors that might or might not influence timeline, but that you should be very aware of. The first one is, does this country allow dual citizenship? So that's something that you always need to take into consideration. Once you get citizenship certificate, do you need to renounce your previous citizenship? Obviously, for people who are already thinking about this, and maybe want to renounce their citizenship due to some other reasons, this definitely can be an additional motive to do that. And obviously you can do the whole planning to match the timeline. And the second factor is, do your parents need to apply? So sometimes just by simply looking at the requirements, you might figure out that you are not eligible. But in most of the cases, your parents might be eligible. So if they can apply for citizenship, again, in most of the cases, they can transfer that citizenship to you, or you can later on apply based on their citizenship. So this kind of a bit adds up on a timeline if they are the first one that need to apply. But that's something definitely you have to have in mind when you're looking into your eligibility. Don't let pure text put you off of that, because you still might be eligible if your parents apply first. If you're thinking that you might be eligible for citizenship by descent, you can check out multiple articles on this topic on our website. And if you need help with this, Nomad Capitalist is here to help you.